Hi guys, welcome back to Lex Alexas. We are back to Transfer Tuesday, which means it is another episode of the Transfer Show. We're going to cover all the new championship deals that have happened since my last transfer video this time last week. Lots of deals, especially from one newly promoted club, have happened in this last week, which I will give you my reaction to all of those ingoings and outgoings, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time going on to some transfer rumours too. So there's still lots to go through today. If you guys enjoy the series, please like, subscribe and share. All of that really does help, and it really does help the growth of this channel. Here are another number of you who have chosen to subscribe to my channel, and I'm giving a shout out. So shoutouts go to Tony Woodrow, Ella, Nick, and I'm really sorry I don't know how to say that last name. Sasanda Matwazi, Maniac 15193, Noble Nidweni, Ben, Asamrina, Rodney Garaseb, Vincent Miriritsa, Paul Quigley, Josh, Ernest Fat, Peter R, and KB. Thank you for supporting the channel. It really does massively help everyone, and it really does not go unnoticed, which is why I'm starting to do this as often as I can. But without any further ado, let's cover the latest championship transfer deals that have happened in this past week. It's really going to be Birmingham's transfer show, isn't it? Because they have made not one, not two, but 6 new deals since my last video. Unbelievable. Let's try and go through a brainstorm of the incredible business that they've done in this past 5 or 6 days. So, Brighter Samuel, it was rumoured, we talked about him last week. They did get him in from Fenerbahce, and I think he will be recognised in a right back role, which is a different role where we associated him last time he was out in the Championship, but he's been developing that role since he's moved to Fenerbahce and Turkey. So I'm really excited to see how he'll get on again. Damari Gray has returned to Birmingham, an undisclosed fee from Al Ettifaq. I think it would have been quite a fair fee to pay him out of his contract. 29 years of age, so he's not got a million amount of years left in him, but I think at a crucial time in his career, this could be a really, really good test for Gray to see if he can pick up the intensity and the pace again. And returning to Birmingham, he is definitely sold by the project and the ambition that Birmingham have been showing in this transfer window. Then with some 2 loan transfers now, Tommy Doyle, what a signing. We've seen how well he did with Sheffield United last season. It is Birmingham who are going to reap the benefits of having his impact in that midfield area. And then James Beadle, who of course, you know, was in the England under-21 squad that have just won their Euro Championships. He had an okay season. I think at Sheffield Wednesday it wasn't the best of seasons. I think certainly the first half he was okay, kind of tailed off near the end, but very raw still, 20 years of age, and is still fighting for that number 1 place. And I think he will have a really big competition to fight with Ryan Alsop for that number 1 place for Birmingham. So Birmingham have got options now, and I'm really excited to see how that leads as well. And this is not even all of their most recent signings. They've made a double transfer for Kanye Fujimoto, a free transfer, an attacking midfielder from Gin Vicente from, I think, the Japanese league. Brilliant signing, exciting signing. Heard some really, really exciting things about him. But the one that really excites me is Kyogo Furuhashi. In his 3 seasons in Celtic, he had an incredible goal return. Was it like 90 odd goals in just over 115 appearances? Unbelievable. I mean, he did spend last season with Rennes. Not quite the same level and impact that he showed at Celtic. But goodness me, a really promising player. Fees reported to be around 9 million euros. So clearly Birmingham are, I think, looking at this as their marquee signing. So lots of pressure is going to be put on Furuhashi, but Certainly, a drop down in the second division for English football, I think could be a good adjustment to him, and I'm really excited to see how he gets on, I cannot lie. So in terms of news for Charlton, for contract purposes, they did a really good job of tying down Macaulay Gillespie. He has been linked with so many clubs, and of course he was the playoff hero and scored the only goal that sent Charlton to this position in the Championship. So Charlton have done a good bit of business keeping him on. Now in terms of the ingoings for Charlton have been relatively busy actually. So they got 2 players from Luton Town, which makes sense with Nathan Jones in charge, of course, of Charlton. Amari Bell has come from Luton, going up a division to Charlton to reunite with Nathan Jones on a free transfer, 31 years of age, so not the youngest of players anymore, but with an abundance and amount of experience, and I think that will be beneficial. Certainly Bell will have a point to prove. I think every Luton player who will be playing in this subsequent season from their relegation will have a point to prove, because these have been players that have been highly regarded, and then they were certainly below the pace last season. So I will be interested to see, can Bell reignite that form that he showed a couple of seasons ago? And that could really be related to Thomas Kaminski. Certainly one of the goalkeepers that had this biggest sort of nosedive in form in the past couple of seasons. I would dare say brilliant at the Prem and brilliant the season before that got Luton promoted up to the Premier League. Yeah, last year had a mistake in him, had at least 1 or 2 red cards as well, which were very, very needless as well. So wasn't the best of seasons from Kaminski. So I will be excited to see if Charlton can benefit for having some of Kaminski's old form, because in his old form, Kaminski was considered one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship, and for Charlton to get that sort of level in for 1 million could be an unbelievable and underrated bit of business from Charlton there. And certainly one transfer is exciting me is Tanto Alaofe. So 25 years of age, centre forward, and he spent last season with Stockport primarily. I'm really excited to see how this one goes on. This feels to me like a Nathan Jones signing, and I think he will be a player that will cause a lot of defences some problems this season, just from his physicality and the way that he likes to play. So Charlton are making moves, steady moves, and I think they are slowly but surely now starting to add the depth that they need for competing in this season, which is really exciting. So Coventry, obviously, the major signing they got was Kessler Hayden. So he was rumoured last week. So like Bryce Asai Samuel, a rumour from last video, and has now been confirmed as an official transfer here. Reported fee to be around €4 million from Aston Villa. Aston Villa obviously trying to comply with PSR rules. They have recently been fined actually from PSR concerns. So Aston Villa definitely preventing from subsequent fines potentially being introduced from that point of view. But Coventry are going to really benefit from this here, because obviously they already got another fullback in as well in Brow from Granada. So it does look like to me that Coventry are definitely strengthening their fullback areas, which I think is a good area of them to gain some strength and depth in those areas. Derby are now starting to enter the conversation of the transfer window. So 3 transfers have joined Derby County. Richard O'Donnell, a goalkeeper who's joined from Blackpool on a free transfer. That one not so mind-blowing, but Derby needing a good amount of competition for their goalkeeping place will be a good transfer for that point of view. But the 2 that stand out to me, which really hurt Blackburn, are 2 players who rejected contract extensions and have left on a free transfer to reunite with former Blackburn manager John Eustace. Danny Batt and Andre Weimann. So Andre Weimann was a Derby player back in the day, a good couple of years ago, and so certainly he will know the club. He will certainly have a good rapport with the supporters. And Danny Batt, not the youngest of players anymore. He's in his mid-30s now, but certainly he will, I think, have at least 1 if not 2 more seasons within him of being a competent Championship defender. So Derby certainly benefiting the free agent system for their transfers, and why wouldn't they? They are getting more players in, their depth is improving, and they're saving pennies doing so. So Derby are moving pretty smartly at this moment of time. So Hull's been an interesting one. So in terms of backroom staff, they recently appointed an assistant coach of Dean Holden. You remember Dean Holden actually took the managerial position for Bristol City and has been involved pretty heavily in championship clubs. So I thought this was an interesting announcement that they made. So he'll be working with Jakirovic in terms of improving Hull City's ambitions for the season. The only other bit of news for Hull City is Matty Jacob. He has left Hull City to join Reading on a season-long loan. Good move for him. I don't think Hull are going to feel too affected with the loss of Jacob, and I think Reading could gain a really promising play on that front. Now, Ipswich Town, do not panic, guys. There's a transfer. We actually have a transfer from Ipswich Town. It is David Button, 36 years of age and a goalkeeper from Reading, but it's a transfer. Now, I really will be surprised if he plays more than 3 championship games at least, in the championship for Ipswich. Unless somehow there is a long-term injury, and that could be foretold that maybe goalkeeper is an area that we need to just get some depth in. It does feel to me that Muric is pretty much on his way out. So Button comes into some important experiences and acts as a very different replacement to Muric, I can tell you that. But yes, certainly at least as a transfer in, but it doesn't give Ipswich fans a lot to be inspired about, unfortunately. Ipswich fans, let me know in the comments down below how you finding the squad so far going into the upcoming season. Millwall have had a relatively quiet week in terms of transfers, but one outgoing that does stand out to me is Aaron Connolly, and I feel a little bit bad for him. He's just been kind of jumping across clubs, and he's not really stayed at a club recently where it's all clicked for him. He's now actually dropped a division to join Leyton Orient. I think that's a really good signing from Leyton Orient to get someone like Aaron Connolly in. If he can look at this opportunity as a chance to prove himself, I think Orient could benefit of a player that could get a really good streak of form together. So I will be interested to see how this one turns out. Oxford United have had a little bit of movement too, which I'm pleased about. Brian de Keersmaker has joined Oxford from Heracles, Dutch, and he's 25 years old on an undisclosed fee, so I'm not too sure how much they did pay for him in the end. But he has certainly been a bit of an impact. He actually scored, I think, at least twice actually in Oxford's recent pre-season game. In terms of an outgoing, they've lost Idris El Mizuni, and he will actually join Leyton Orient also. So Leyton Orient making some decent championship moves at this moment of time. So I'll be interested to see how they compete with their season. But we will be speaking about Leyton Orient again in for the negative in terms of more ingoings for championship clubs very soon. Portsmouth, this recently happened, like literally minutes ago. Riley Towler has left Portsmouth to join Lincoln City, an undisclosed fee. So not really measuring the value that Lincoln had to play to get Riley Towler in, but someone who worked hard for the club but wasn't really reaching up to championship level, and then that showed with his lack of game time. So I do think this is a good opportunity for the player to maybe drop down a division and to prove himself to be a really good player at that level. Preston, so they made one transfer since my last video, and that was Oluga Ofaya, the right back. Obviously his parent club Brighton, it used to be Brighton. He actually spent last season with Blackpool and did a really good job there, and it does look like Preston have got him permanently on an undisclosed fee. Good move for Preston, I think. I do think with the attributes that Ofaya has, and for what we've seen with Blackpool last year, I think it'll be a good signing for Preston. So I've been really impressed actually of Preston's intent to improve their back line, because that has been a major part of their failures from last season. Sheffield United have had a little movement. I mean, the big bombshell for them was Vinny Souza. He has officially left Sheffield United, which was pretty predictable. The Brazilian defensive midfielder, 26 years of age, has recently moved from Sheffield United to join Wolfsburg for a fee of around £15 million. So a decent bit of money for Sheffield United to invest in the squad. But to kind of act as his, not necessarily replacement because they are central players but in different areas of the pitch, Tyler Bindon has come in from Nottingham Forest on loan. 20 years old and is more or less recognised as a centre-back rather than a defensive midfielder. But perhaps Sellers might be thinking of pushing Tyler Bindon a little bit more, advanced in that defensive midfield position, if that does become an area where Sheffield United are looking a little bit light in. But Sheffield United making business, which is good, and are raising lots of money at this moment. Will Sousa be the only transfer to raise over 10 million transfer fees from Sheffield United in this window? Who knows? There's certainly one, at least, if not two players who I think if they could sell them right now, Sheffield United, I think they will get over 10 million for them. Stoke have made one notable signing last week, and that was Maxim Talarev. Honestly, massive fan. I saw the notification of Stoke getting him in and I thought, that is a transfer if I ever saw one. I was so pleased and impressed with him, especially in the second half of last season with Plymouth, and he was immense. I believe he played in the FA Cup for Plymouth, who knocked out Liverpool, and was absolutely incredible in that game. So I think he will be a good player for Stoke. Certainly convinced me that he's a decent defender in Championship level. So I think Stoke have done really, really well there, and I really hope under Robbins he gets the best out of him. Now, we spoke about Leyton Orient getting players in, but as a sacrifice, they've lost Ethan Galbraith. And that was someone we discussed in my first transfer show. Who is he going to go to? He has joined Swansea. And Swansea, I believe, was one of the three clubs I did mention who were linked with him. But my goodness me, he attracted so much competition in the Championship to get his signature. And it's Swansea who have won it. And that shows the trust that he has in Swansea's project. The fee is reported to be around 1.5 million. I mean, 24 years of age in that midfield position. Could be an incredible player from years to come. And Swansea have now reaping the benefits of that, hopefully. So I'm really excited to see how he gets on here. I was really impressed with him from Leyton Orient. So now I'm ready for him to take that step up to see if he can take it up to the Championship. Not many more transfers to go through. So Watford have made the signing of Vivaldo Semedo, centre forward, 20 years of age from Udinese. Doesn't really surprise me. I thought we were going to see more Udinese Watford transfers there. Now, very recent, only an hour ago, West Brom have actually announced the signing of a bit of an unknown quantity. It is Ona Hagebo from the Norwegian League. He plays for Brown, I believe that's how you say it. 23 years of age, centre forward. 9 goal contributions in 13 games in that senior level, but he has been there at their youth academy since 1920 and has kind of been trying to prove himself in those number of years, and it's only been last season where he was starting to get at least over 10 games playing at the first tier of the Norwegian League and getting those goal contributions in. So a bit of an unknown quantity there, with the suitability of getting Nat Phillips in, who's full of Championship experience, and then Una Hagebo, someone who has never played in England until now. They couldn't be any more different, the transfers, if they tried. But that is what makes it so exciting from West Brom, those different options and different players that can offer so many different things. So Hagebo, how would he do? I don't know. He's an unknown quantity, so I'm really excited to see how he gets on. Finally, Wrexham. So they got in Danny Ward, and that was expected. That was a player I mentioned in my last week's transfer show, so I'm not massively surprised that he has returned to Wrexham. Certainly will be fighting for competition in that goalkeeping position. And in terms of an outgoing for Wrexham, they got rid of Luke McNicholas, and he's actually a goalkeeper as well. So essentially, they got Danny Ward, but they lost McNicholas in the process. He has joined Forest Green, who, if I remember right, have recently appointed Robbie Savage as their manager. So that will be interesting altogether. We'll see how he does in the National League. So that took a while, but those are all the transfers that happened in the past week since my show. So if I missed anyone, let me know in the comments down below. But now let's talk through some rumours. Not only some player rumours, but we're going to talk about some managerial rumours. I'm actually going to start off with the player room here, and it's on a player which I've not spoken about a lot, but it's Mickey Johnson. He was a really important player for West Brom when they managed to get him in from Celtic on loan originally, and there were reports that he could be going to Flamengo, but very contrasting reports. Brazilian reports quite dismissive of Johnston joining and saying that he failed the medical altogether and saying he's not going, but contrasting reports, especially from the UK, are not agreeing with that at this moment of time. So it does feel that it's still slightly open. It's almost like the deal has been left ajar rather than wide open. So it does feel to me that Johnston is going to attract loads of interest, and you've seen now that you can even attract interest from Brazilian clubs as well for a little bit too. So Johnston, I'll be keeping my close eye on to see, for one, if he still is looking to move elsewhere, and two, if he does move elsewhere, what is the likely route that he'll be going through, because he certainly was a very critical player for West Brom when they did have him available on the pitch. Now, the speculation of Sheffield Wednesday's future is very bleak, because at this moment of time, the 1st of July has passed. It is past the deadline for those players, and what has ended up happening is that we've had, I believe it was up to 6 players who have handed in their notice. It's really sad stuff, and Chansiri will be keen to raise money, and the reports I'm hearing, he's more likely going to try and raise money rather than trying to find the initiative to sell the club at this moment of time. He's probably thinking still that if Sheffield Wednesday have an amazing season and their overall value goes up, he'll think, okay, well now that's the perfect time to go. But their value is going to be rock bottom. When you've got cash flow problems in any public limited company or limited company, your value, your fair value just goes way down, and investors will be looking at that thinking, if I invest money into this is a massive risk that I'm taking, unfortunately. And this is a very bleak situation because their manager at this moment, I've not really been seen involved in any of the preparations, which leads me to believe that Danny Roll does look like he will eventually leave the club when Sheffield Wednesday get their act together and can start hopefully paying their staff. And the way they may have to do that is getting loads of outgoings. Shea Charles Gasanga is actually going to be a rumour I'm going to speak about in a minute. He's been linked with a couple of clubs, but certainly that will be, I think, a strategy that Chansiri will go for. Whether I agree with the long-term vision of this, if it can momentarily patch things up, that's fine, but I do not see this as a long-term way of financing the club, if I've got to be brutally honest. It's either that Chansiri is going to have to take out a massively risky loan to help pay for those staff members and other facilities, and he'll be really hoping and praying for Sheffield Wednesday to have a successful season, but they're in an utter mess, and right now it's hard to see anything massively positive. But it does feel like to me that Henrik Pedersen is going to be sticking with Sheffield Wednesday. He, was the assistant coach to Roll and has become the first senior coach to join, Sheffield Wednesday at their training camp currently at St George's Park. So it does feel to me, if Danny Roll does leave, which to me is likely, I think Henrik Pedersen will be trusted with that role at least right at the start, until Chansiri might think, you know what, I can do better than that and try and get someone in. But there's so little money going through, and I honestly think that will be the best option for Pedersen, to aim for a promotion rather than a manager having to hook up lots of money to try and get someone new in, and that ultimately brings a lot more risks as well. So another managerial bit of news is on Leicester. So of course they're still looking for a new manager. Their transfer business has been very little, and I feel a big part of that has been down to the uncertainty of who they'll bring in. This kind of links nicely to my discussion of Roll, because Roll was one of the 4 candidates that Leicester were thinking about. It sounds to me now on reports that they've whittled those managers down to 2, and Roll and Sean Dyche are now out of the question, which surprises me. A late entry in the competition who has actually remained in the top 2 candidates is Chris Wilder. It looks like that he might get a shot return in the Championship to manage Leicester. So obviously when he did get dismissed from Sheffield United, it was a bit of a shock, but undoubtedly he has got interest in Leicester because he's got experience of getting teams out of this level, and that's exactly what Leicester can be wanting. But the favourite at this moment of time is Gary O'Neill. Very interesting manager. Not seen him do it in Championship level, but when we have seen him do it in the Premier League, I thought he's been a pretty solid manager. So excited to see how this one goes on. We spoke about Blackburn players leaving because of their contracts not being renewed. So Danny Bat and Andre Weimann were 2 or 3 key players leaving Blackburn. One who is still looking for a club is Tyrese Dolan. So he has been linked to a move in Turkey, but for what I've been told or what I've found is that I don't think it was Trabzonspor or something like that, like another Turkish club. They cannot bring him in but due to the wage demands from Dolan. So he is looking like that his options are now fully open again. And Bristol City are looking like that they want to get Tyrese Dolan into the club. And I think that'd be a really positive signing. I'm quite excited already with the concept of Dolan getting some game time with a highly intense Bristol City side. So whether he does move to Bristol City or whether it's another Turkish club that goes in for him, I think it'll be a really exciting move for Dolan. So still a player who's not got a club, but certainly will be leaving Blackburn. Let's see where he goes. Now Blackburn, if we are going to talk about them again, let's talk about them in a positive way. And they are one of the clubs linked with Deji Gassama. So I already spoke about Gassama from Sheffield Wednesday. It is looking increasingly likely that he will be leaving. And it does feel to me that Blackburn may try to profit by getting Gassama on a cheaper. Shansiri would not want to let them go so easily. He definitely would want a fair price with that. But I think Gassama, thinking about the holes in that Blackburn squad, I think he'd do a really, really good job. And certainly, you know, I think he spent 2 seasons with Sheffield Wednesday. First season was not so great. But last season, I believe, was it 7 goals that he scored last year? Brilliant. A brilliant improvement for Gassama. So for me, top of his game, and I think Blackburn would definitely get a benefit of getting him in. Couple more rumours left to talk about. Let's talk about Millwall and Mihailo Ivanovic. So certainly one of the young players of the season, but when that comes round, clubs get interested. 2 Premier League clubs in Everton and Wolves are interested, but a recent story has gone down to Italian club Parma interesting to try and get Ivanovic in, because they've got a situation where they've got to try and fill the void of Ange Ioamboni, who has previously joined Inter Milan in this window. So they may have no choice, Parma, to try and get someone like Ivanovic in to fill for that position. Let's say worst case scenario for Mill that does happen, and it will be a big loss if it does. There are a couple of players that Millwall can actually turn to that could offer something a little bit similar to Ivanovic and can benefit from that. One of the players they've looked at is Richard Kone. To me, one of the better players that Wickham have had all of last season. So I think if he does go to the Championship, I think it will be a brilliant move. And another one is Charlie Kelman. So he's currently at Queen's Park Rangers since that is his parent club. But he did an amazing job last season with Leyton Orient. So definitely some key individuals that Mill have identified in case the worst case scenario of Ivanovic does come true, which is really good transfer business to kind of think of these contingency plans when things don't go so well. So some really good, clever bit of business that Mill were putting through at this moment of time. Let's talk through Ipswich. So one thing that's really expected from Ipswich at this moment of time is that it's going to be very difficult to keep the loan players that they had from last season into the club. There has been recent reports that Ipswich may try and retain Jean Cajuste. So obviously he joined from Napoli last season on loan and proved to be a really good signing. I thought he was a much better signing for what Calvin Phillips proved to be in that midfield position. And he'll be an unbelievable player in the Championship. I can already tell you this with the very little I've seen of him from the Prem. Now, Besiktas are interested. So there is some competition. So I am aware that it's going to be difficult. But if the right fee can be given in, I actually think this could be a transfer that will be highly beneficial for Ipswich's midfield areas. Because I do think, for me, defence is looking okay. Up top, maybe could use for one more player. But I'm my standards are high. Championship, I think they have got some solid players all over the pitch, but I think midfield might be the one area where they definitely need more options. And Cajuste, I think, will be great for Ipswich to try and get back into the squad. But will they do it? Realistically, I don't think they will, but I really hope and prove wrong. So this is what I got today in terms of rumours. If I've missed any out that you saw, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll give you my reaction to those too. But now wrap it up for today. I'm going to have the joys of editing this in midnight. If you guys enjoyed, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. Please hit the subscribe button too, as we're trying to climb to 4,000 subscribers now. I can't believe I'm saying that. And please also share the channel too. All of that really helps. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.